up on Sports Weekly. And then there was one. The Braves and the Giants battled down to the final day of the season. We'll preview today's matchups with reports from L.A. and Atlanta. Can you say Theismann? Wheatley makes his case for the Wolverines. A complete college rundown is ahead. We'll examine the rehabilitation of Richard Dumas. Is it a conflict of interest for John Lucas?
It's obviously a conflict, and I think that somebody will do something about it.
Quarterback is the NFL's glamour position. But what about those out-of-control egos?
Ego is armor. People with the biggest egos, to a large degree, are probably the most insecure people you'll find.
Need a cold shower to wake up? Start your day right with Sports Weekly. Next.
Good morning. I'm Dick Schaap, and welcome to Sunday Sports Day, October 3rd, 1993. 2 hours of news, views, reviews, and previews, highlights and sidelights, cheers and jeers. It may take only one punch to stagger Frank Bruno, but the Braves and the Giants are real heavyweights, shrugging off jabs and hooks and uppercuts to stage the last great pennant race. The last time the teams with the two best records in baseball will come down to the final game of the season, certain that one of them is on the brink of elimination. Robin Roberts is with us, as usual, to lead us through our opening hour Sports Weekly. And Robin, of course, after realignment, there will still be pennant races and still be dramas, but can you imagine a race any more dramatic than this year's between the Giants and the Braves?
Are you kidding me? I understand the reasons behind realignment, but this is fantastic. You got to remember, it wasn't all that long ago, a few years ago, that the Braves were considered the worst team in baseball. So, Dick, it doesn't get any better than this.
Well, if the Braves get past the Giants, then they get to play the team that was the worst team in baseball last year, the Phillies.
Excellent point there, Dick.
It's a good omen for the Mets.
You think so for the Mets? You heard it from him. Now, you better believe we're going to begin the morning talking about the Wild, Wild West, the two teams with the best records in baseball, 103 wins and 58 losses, the Braves and the Giants. But this time next week, one of them will be on vacation, while the other will be most likely be favored to win the World Series. Quite a difference. This would be a laugher for the Braves on Saturday. Greg Maddux in control all day, gets Eric Young looking. Andres Galarraga can't reach the slider. And Darryl Boston waves at another off-speed pitch. Maddux with strict 6 strikeouts on the day. Terry Pendleton, one of the many offensive contributors in the first. He singles in Ron Gant, Braves up 2-0. Then in the 5th inning, Pendleton with a triple, driving in Dave Justice. Braves led 6-1, and the Braves fans confident they will not be heading out to the coast. Braves win by a final of 10-1. Greg Maddux allowed an unearned run on 4 hits over 7 innings to become the 4th 20-game winner in the NL. He'll finish as the NL's ERA leader with a 2.36 mark. Buzz Capra was the last Brave to do that in '74. Now for the Giants and the Dodgers, 7th inning, 3-2 San Fran. Dave Martinez doubles to right center. Will Clark and Barry Bonds both score. Giants up 5-2. But Dusty Baker would have to sweat this one out. Bottom of the 8th, Dodgers would load the bases, bringing the go-ahead run to the plate, that being Dave Hansen facing Rod Beck. He flies deep to right, but Dave Martinez has room. Lasorda can't believe it. Giants hold on by a final of 5-3. Rod Beck comes through again, pitching a hitless 9th for his 48th save. The Giants have now won 14 of 16 since a season-high 8-game losing streak. The MVP chatter surrounding Barry Bonds quieted a bit. The early part of last month, his first 15 games in September were anything but MVP-like, with 1 homer, 1 RBI, and a .255 batting average, or rather .261. But since September 18th, Bonds has been winning votes again. Friday night against the Dodgers, he had 2 homers and a career-high 7 RBIs. You'll see this MVP candidate in action right here on ESPN this afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern. Keep in mind, the last time the Giants swept the Dodgers as the visiting team was back in 1923 at Ebbets Field in Brooklyn. You think the Dodgers will be ready for this one? Yeah. Since the Braves play 3 hours earlier, the Giants will know what they have to do to either win the division or force a playoff. And there's a lot riding on the final game between the Giants and the Dodgers. To college football, last night the Alabama Crimson Tide visited South Carolina. Bama had never lost to the Gamecocks, and one more victory would equal a school record for consecutive wins, 28 victories in a row. Gamecock quarterback Steve Tannehill did not have a good night at all. Here he's intercepted by Sam Shade in the third quarter. Tannehill threw 2 interceptions on the night, and Tannehill's mistake led to this Alabama score as Sherman Williams goes airborne for his second touchdown of the night, but not an easy night for Sherman Williams. He had to pay the price here, but Bama wins by a final of 17-6. Sherman Williams had 23 carries for 106 yards. Bama quarterback Jay Barker remains unbeaten in 22 starts. Let's see if Penn State would also remain undefeated. Tough night for Scott Milanovich. He's now looking, the ball snapped right over his head. 18-0 Penn State. In the second, still 18-zip. Kajana Carter takes everybody in with them. It's 25-0 Penn State. Then with Penn State up 32-7, Carter breaks a tackle, gets to the sideline. He goes airborne. It's 39-7 Penn State, and the Nittany Lions, they simply chased the Terrapins out of their own stadium. The final 70-7. The worst loss in 80 years for the Terps. Kajana Carter scored 3 touchdowns and accounted for 159 of Penn State's 526 rushing yards. And also the Wildcats over USC 38-7. Arizona now 5-0 for the first time since '75. The Wildcats sacked the Southern Cal quarterback 5 times and allowed just 47 yards rushing, the highest total they had permitted this season. No wonder they're 5-0. And we certainly are glad you decided to join us again this Sunday morning. Later here on Sports Weekly, they're often the highest paid, receive the most attention, and are accused of being egotistical. Talking about NFL quarterbacks, we'll have an enlightening report later. No egos, of course, in the college game. Notre Dame humbled Stanford yesterday, avenging last season's loss. That and much more when we come back.
Sports Weekly is brought to you by Walmart. Always the low price, always.
Here are the numbers from the final Saturday of the regular season. Back to college football and back to work for top-ranked Florida State. The Seminoles had last week off. Georgia Tech came to town yesterday, the first of 4 straight home games for the Noles. Quarterback Charlie Ward, a 17-yard strike. Dekez McCorvey, one of 4 touchdown passes on the day for Charlie Ward. Noles win 51-0. They play number 3 Miami next week. 1AA Georgia Southern at Miami. Reserve quarterback Ryan Collins, a 27-yard toss to Jonathan Harris. Hurricanes win 30-7. Notre Dame at Stanford in the third quarter. Clint Johnson of the Irish out of the end zone returns it 100 yards for the score. Irish still undefeated. They win 48-20 to the SEC. Florida hosting Mississippi State. Danny Werfel, 449 yards passing, one to Chris Doring, and then John Jackson on the kickoff, 100 yards in the third quarter for the score. Gators win 38-24. Northwestern at Ohio State, second quarter. Butler Minote, a 7-yard score, 13-6 Buckeyes. Ohio State's Joey Galloway on the sweep, 9 yards for the score. The Buckeyes win 51-3. Oklahoma at Iowa State, third quarter. Sooners up by 10. Cal Gundy goes 6 yards for the score. Sooners win 24-7. Iowa at Michigan, a big day for the Wolverines running back Tyrone Wheatley. He takes the first quarter pass from Todd Collins. He goes 48 yards for the score, one of 3 touchdowns for Wheatley. Michigan wins 24-7. Duke at Tennessee. Heath Schuler, a screen pass to Billy Williams. He goes 50 yards for the score. Schuler with 4 touchdown passes. Vols win 52-19. BC at Syracuse in the second. Little flea flicker here. Glenn Foley goes 48 yards to Clarence Cannon. Eagles held on to win 33-29. Texas Tech hosting Texas A&M in the fourth. Corey Pulley throws to Leland McElroy, a 36-yard scoring play. Texas A&M wins 31-6. San Jose State at Washington. Huskies get fancy. The reverse ball back to the quarterback, Damon Heward, who throws 52 yards to Jason Shelley. Washington routs San Jose State. UTEP at North Carolina. Hill's freshman Leon Johnson scored 4 touchdowns, one of them here. UNC wins the battle 45-39. Oregon at California. Oregon led by 30. And then Dave Barr leads a furious rally. And then the 2-point conversion going to win 42-21. Virginia Tech at West Virginia, 14-13, the final in that one. NC State at Clemson late in the 4th quarter. Tigers lead 20-14. Wolfpack's last gasp. Jeff Bender's 4th down pass is knocked away. Clemson hangs on. Division I AA defending champ Marshall at Tennessee Chattanooga. Kenyon Earl throws 18 yards to Terrell Owens. 33-31 is the final. Here are other college gridiron scores from Saturday. And Bino Cook is ready to put some meaning behind all those scores and highlights. So let's go back to Dick Schaap in New York. Dick?
Well, some people say the genius of college football was in Palo Alto yesterday to face Notre Dame, and some say he's in our studio right now to face me. Bino, you're much too humble, of course, to make that comparison. But tell me, play genius. Florida State plays Miami next week. Biggest game of the young season so far. What's going to happen?
Florida State will finally beat Miami.
On a field goal?
I don't know if maybe if it's a field goal, it's going to be wide right. They're going to lose, but I think they're going to win by more than a touchdown. Bobby Bowden, time is running out. He's in his 60s. He only has a few more years to coach. This seems to be the best shot to win the national title. He's going to beat Miami, but there won't be a national title. They will lose at Notre Dame and at Florida, maybe both. But I don't think they can beat both of those teams.
You don't think so? How about if they beat Miami by 40 points? Will you finally put them ahead of Alabama?
Yes, I will.
You will. That's
yes.
really nice.
Yeah,
of you to do
isn't
that.
it? Yeah.
Let's switch to the far coast, out in California. California's undefeated. They came back from 30-0 down to Oregon. A routine victory?
Yeah, routine victory for the Golden Bears. 2 years ago, very good. Last year, disappointment. Great comeback. Funny, at the Stanford game, Stanford is getting killed, and all at once you hear all this clapping. They announced the California score when Oregon was winning by 300 points. It was a sad night last night in Palo Alto.
Who was clapping, the Stanford band?
Yeah.
Or the California band?
Yeah, either one.
Good bands. Let's get to your top 5. Who are your top 5?
Well, not changed for a couple of weeks. Number 5 will be Florida. Very good team. Steve Spurrier, superb coach, unbeatable at home.
Good
Notre Dame, number 4, loaded. All the more material than any team in the country. Number 3, Miami for this week. Next week they drop to number 7. But I keep saying Miami's going to lose all the time, and they never do. Number 2, Florida State. I'm keeping them right where they are. And Alabama, which won the national title last year. Somebody said they only beat South Carolina 17-6. Winning on the road in the Southeastern Conference is the toughest place to win on the road.
Florida State could have beaten Georgia Tech as bad as Georgia Tech beat Cumberland, and you still wouldn't have put them number 1.
You're right.
And that was 212-0, right?
222.
222-0.
You stick to baseball.
Okay, I will. You know, I know you're excited because the baseball season's almost over, but stick around, and on the hour, you can hear what the sports reporters Album, Conlon, and Lupica have to say about the Giants and the Braves, and arguably the best pennant race in baseball history. But first, coming up next, a Sports Weekly report on the biggest subject in sports right now, the National League West.
Could it be deja vu all over again? A lot of similarities between what the Braves have done and what the Yankees did 15 years ago. Remember in '78 when the Yanks, as far as 14 games out, July 19th, overtook the Red Sox late in the season? The Braves 10 games back on July 22nd also only lost once to the Giants recently. Of course, it remains to be seen if the Braves can indeed hold off San Francisco and go on to win the World Series like the Yankees did in '78. As I said earlier, it doesn't get any better than this. The final day of the season, and 162 games may not be enough to decide the NL West. We already know 100 victories isn't enough. Tom Glavine already has 21 victories this season. He'll start today against David Need, the pitcher the Braves didn't protect, so he'll be fired up for the Rockies, no doubt. Glavine is working on only 3 days rest. That was just fine for Maddox, but in his career, Glavine is 5-8 on 3 days rest with a 4.60 ERA. Steve Cyphers has the first of our 2 reports on the NL West. Steve is with the Braves in Atlanta.
Game 161 was a mere formality. The Braves jumped in front and never looked back. Instead, they looked ahead to Game 162.
Tomorrow could be the last day, but then again, it could be Monday.
Not nerve-wracking. It's just a lot of pressure that's going on right now, and it's a little bit of fun, but it's a lot of work during this time. So we're having fun, but we're not having fun.
Playing the Rockies favors Atlanta. The Braves haven't lost to them all season.
Say there's any way we can't lose, but I feel I like our chances.
Stay tuned tomorrow and you'll find out.
Oh, fans will tune in, but at different times. The Braves take the field in Atlanta a full 3 hours before the Giants do the same in Los Angeles. And that's a big advantage, say the Braves, under one condition.
If we win, there's an advantage because of the fact that they know it's already under the belt for us. They've got to go out and do it. If we lose, it's going to be more relaxing in L.A. for them.
Tom Glavine gets the start in this regular season game with postseason pressure. His postseason record isn't spectacular. 0 wins in the LCS, a 2-2 mark in World Series play.
For guys to say they thrive on pressure, I don't know if guys really can do that or not. I mean, I think we'd all rather be in a much relaxed situation, because that's when you play your best baseball, is when you're relaxed.
Opposite Glavine is the Rockies' David Need. The former Brave left unprotected last fall. He asked for this assignment. With the assignment at Dodger Stadium covering the Giants is Mark Schwartz.
Solomon Torres began the year at Double-A Shreveport. He finishes it at Dodger Stadium. With the season on the line, Dusty Baker goes with a 21-year-old who's lost 4 of his last 5 decisions, opting for talent instead of experience.
And the kid's definitely not scared. That's what I like. You know, it's hard to teach that.
Is he as confident now as he was after his first 2 starts?
Hope so. I'm going to go out there and try and make him.
And if it's late and if it's close, closer Rod Beck will go for the 9th time in 10 days. Beck says his legs are aching, but his arm is just fine.
You need the rest right now?
No, I'm not going to answer that anymore. I don't need a day off. I'm going to pitch until I blow.
Oh, right into the finish line. I mean, we don't have no choice, man. You know what I mean? Don't have no choice.
Baker says he won't play sore-ribbed Willie McGee Sunday, but he is considering using Robbie Thompson at second base. Thompson has taken BP and ground balls, but still feels pressure in his shattered cheekbone. Pressure? Did someone mention pressure?
It's almost like when you're a kid in the backyard. You know, I'm playing wiffle ball, and, you know, this is 3-2, 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th in the World Series, and that's basically what tomorrow's ball game is going to be like.
The Giants like the idea of a playoff game Monday night at the Stick. Probably better than they like Colorado's chances Sunday. The Rockies are now 0-for-12 against Atlanta.
Raw Barry's different on the Rocky side. You know what I mean? I mean, definitely on the Rocky side. So, like, you know, come on, Baylor.
The Giants have never swept a 4-game series here at Dodger Stadium. In fact, last time the Giants took a 4-game road set from the Dodgers was 70 years ago at Ebbets Field in Brooklyn. On the other hand, the Dodgers haven't knocked the Giants out of a pennant race since 1934. In Los Angeles, I'm Mark Schwartz, ESPN.
All right, Mark, we will bring you the 4th and final game between the Giants and the Dodgers this afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern. We will also keep you up to date on the Braves game with the Rockies with cut-ins throughout the afternoon. And if a playoff is needed to decide the NL West title, we will bring you that exciting game between the Braves and the Giants right here on ESPN at 10:30 Eastern tomorrow night. And baseball tonight, a special baseball tonight, would precede this game at 10 p.m. Eastern. The winner will, of course, join the party. The Jays are already invited. So are the White Sox. And the Phillies patiently wait for their party guests. We'll look back on a clinching week in the majors next. Let's venture across the pond for Friday's heavyweight fight between Lennox Lewis and Frank Bruno. Bruno stayed with Lewis until the 7th round. In fact, one judge had Bruno ahead until this barrage. Lewis, look, he just lines Bruno up, and Bruno, the bout was stopped a few seconds after that punch. Lewis wins with a 7th round knockout to retain the WBC belt. His record now 24-5. and 3 down, 1 to go. Yes, the NL West is still up in the air, but the other 3 pennant races reached the finish line this week. As Steve Levy is about to explain, the Phillies are no longer the worst. They're first. Bo-knows drama. And the Jays return to familiar ground.
Paul Molitor homered in his former home park in the Blue Jays clincher. The ex-Brewer glad to be a part of a winner in '93.
I was hoping that I could have a part in our clinching victory, so it was nice. It was sweet to do it here, and you know, Pat and the rest of the staff took care of the rest of the game. But this is definitely a very special game that I'll remember for a long time.
The rest of the Jays aren't likely to forget anytime soon either. Jackson was the hero for the White Sox on clinch night, homering in the 6th off Seattle's Dave Fleming. Chicago's Cy Young Award candidate addressed the perceived lack of respect for the Sox.
I think the guys that face up across the field from us know the kind of team we have, know the type of players we have. And, you know, the one thing that has been said about us is when we needed to win, we won. Yeah. And then it comes down to a playoff situation. That works out pretty well, so we'll see what happens.
It's been a long time coming. This team has just worked so hard, and, you know, our time is finally here.
The Phillies' time is here as well.
Dave Clark, the hitter, grounder to Kruk, fair ball to the pitcher, and the Phillies have won it.
That is my 8th year, but I mean, the teams I played on have been so bad that I never thought. No, it's like you see everyone doing this every year, and you think, you know, that's for them. You know, I'll be home October 4th, but this is fun.
You want fun? The NL West race is fun. The Giants and Braves stayed neck and neck this week. Tuesday, the Giants pulled even with a win over the Rockies. Steve Scarsoni and Will Clark provided the pop for San Francisco. The Braves fell short in their attempt for yet another dramatic 9th-inning rally when Doug Jones got Jeff Blauser with the bases loaded. Wednesday, the Giants lost to the Rockies. Darryl Boston homered twice, and Solomon Torres couldn't get out of the 3rd inning. Atlanta capitalized this time behind slugger Fred McGriff, who blasted his 36th homer. The Braves' 1-game lead lasted 1 day. Atlanta lost to Houston Thursday, again falling short in a thrilling 9th inning. Bill Swift pulled the Giants even with a 7-inning 2-hit performance at Los Angeles. The division was tied on Friday. No one gained ground Friday night. Terry Pendleton led the Braves to a 7-4 win over the Rockies. Pendleton had a season-high 5 RBIs. Barry Bonds a career-high 7 ribbies as the Giants kept pace with an 8-7 win over the Dodgers. Saturday, the Braves beat the Rockies, and the Giants won again in Los Angeles. The division was tied going into the final game of the season. A playoff loomed on Monday.
I know nothing is free these days, but this is pretty darn close. Future Hall of Famer Nolan Ryan only pitched in 13 games, but still made $3.7 million this season. Kelly Gruber, $4.3 for 18 games. Mark McGwire was sidelined much of the season, but still took home $4 million. Darryl Strawberry played more than anyone on this list, that being a mere 32 games. Coming up, I think Warren Moon and the Oilers would just rather forget what happened to them last Sunday against the Rams. The NFL Week in Review is next. And it's time for our quarterly report of the NFL season. That's right, last Sunday marked week number 4, and quite a few made their mark. Jack Edwards has all the hair-raising details.
It was frightening. It was dangerous. It was weird. Brian Cox gave the Buffalo fans a personal salute. The league saluted him with a $10,000 fine. On the field, Steve Christie made history.
Reich puts it down. The kick is on the way, and it is good. He made it. You believe that?
Believe it. 59 yards, the 3rd longest in NFL history. But it couldn't help the Bills win. Dan Marino passed Johnny Unitas in career passing yards. He's now 3rd on the all-time list. Hunger has consumed Saints fans. New Orleans linebackers were a munch bunch, sacking Steve Young 6 times. Ricky Jackson was looking particularly well-fed with 3 of them. The best foot in football won it for the Saints. Morton Anderson, 49 yards with 5 seconds to play to beat the Niners. Jim McMahon's 45-yard pass to Eric Gulliford with 14 seconds remaining set up the 5th field goal of the day for Fouad Reveiz. This one for the win. Reveiz's foot accounted for all 15 Vikings points. With less than 5 minutes remaining, leading by 1 point, the Cincinnati Bengals got the ball on their 4-yard line. Harold Green was stripped by Rod Stevens. He recovered it in the end zone for the winning touchdown. The Bengals sink to a dismal 0-4. Speculation continues about Jack Pardee's job. The 1-3 Oilers fell victim to Jim Everett's 316-yard, 3-touchdown Sunday. The Oilers have a bye this week in order to get their egos in order. Former Dallas assistant Dave Wanstead picked up his first win as a head coach as the Bears stunned the Bucs by scoring 47 points, thanks in part to 4 field goals by Kevin Butler. Jeff George was given a warm welcome by the home crowd. But the Colts were able to hold it together long enough to beat the Browns and up their record to 2-1.
Well, we're going to try out a quarterback every week?
Not this week. After leading the Lions to a 6-point victory over the Cardinals, Andre Ware has gotten the nod again this week. Unfortunately, the Lions paid for their victory with a broken ankle for Benny Blades. He's sidelined indefinitely. The Pats were pathetic as they remained winless. Bill Parcells analyzes the situation.
You know, this first month has been very poor. We had a chance to win 2 ball games. We haven't won any. And so I think, you know, I know where we are. And right now we're really not much any place. So.
Right. The Jets, meanwhile, are 2-1. And Boomer Esiason set a new record for club accuracy with 18 consecutive pass completions, including some carried over from the previous week. But he said he almost lost it when Browning Nagel tried to help.
I kind of felt like I was getting ready to bowl a 300 game, and then he came up to me in the 9th frame and said, hey, you know, you only need 3 more strikes.
The Falcons continued their downhill slide, losing 45-17 to the Steelers Monday night. Chris Miller was given a short reprieve from the bench, just enough time to sprain his knee. He'll be out indefinitely. Atlanta is 0-4. Already the Falcons' playoff hopes, like Elvis, may have left the building.
And right after we step aside, Chris Berman and company will join you on NFL Game Day. They'll look at Marcus Allen's first game against his old mates, the Los Angeles Raiders, plus a bizarre look at the increase in field goal kicking throughout the league. Then, after the Giants-Dodgers game, oh, yeah, Boomer's going to be in a great mood if the Giants lose, we'll have NFL Prime Time. And join us for NFL Prime Monday, previewing the Washington-Miami Monday Nighter. This week, Julie Brown goes backstage with defensive mammoth Charles Mann, and a special look at Dolphins coach Don Shula. NFL Prime Monday tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern. And since we have the NFL on our mind, let me remind you that still to come, our in-depth report on the high-profile position of quarterback. Are quarterbacks made or are they born? You won't want to miss what they have to say. Also later, find out what's being said about Richard Dumas entering the Lucas Rehab Center.
When Richard was doing so well, they really wanted me involved. Now there's a problem. Now all of a sudden there's a problem with me being involved.
It was baseball's first year without a commissioner, and as a result, the season seemed, well, a bit unusual. For one thing, there were more exciting fights out on the diamonds than there were at Caesar's Palace. The owners put one of their own in the doghouse for a while. The new Colorado Rockies drew more than 4 million fans to their games, breaking all attendance records. Looks like they found something to do out there when it's not snowing. Philadelphia's star players broke records too, fashion records. They even redefined the phrase, shagging flies. Bobby Bowe and the Mets spent most of the '93 season rehearsing for a new Hollywood horror movie, Shea Stadium Zombies. And didn't we all get a big bang out of Vince Coleman this year? Meanwhile, in a bizarre play down in Texas, Jose Canseco was hit on the head with a baseball and woke up thinking he could pitch. George Brett retired, but of course his bat will live on in infamy. And on a happier note, Mr. October himself was the only one to have his cleats bronzed for the Hall of Fame, which reminds me of why we keep on watching this crazy game. Frank Thomas, Juan Gonzalez, Ken Griffey Jr., Fred McGriff, Dave Winfield, and Barry Bonds.
You can see all the NFL action every Sunday. Sit back. Let us do the work. ESPN NFL Primetime. We'll find every bone-crushing hit, search out every key play, and mix insight from our pros into television's fastest hour of football. NFL Primetime. Tonight at 7 Eastern, only on ESPN.
Some wheeling and dealing this week in the NBA. Dennis Rodman is finally out of Detroit. He is now a San Antonio Spur. And the Spurs sent Sean Elliott to Motown in exchange for the trouble Rodman. 17.2 average for Elliott last year. Also this week, the prize catch in this year's free agent field, AC Green signed a 5-year, $15 million contract with the Phoenix Suns. Green reportedly turned down an identical offer with the LA Lakers. Now, Dennis Rodman was thought to be headed to the Phoenix Suns. That was before Richard Dumas headed to John Lucas's rehab center, where he is attempting to rebuild his life. But as Pam Oliver reports, Dumas's recovery from substance abuse has placed the NBA, the Suns, and the good intentions of Lucas in an awkward position.
I mean, we got to help the guy.
John Lucas runs a drug aftercare clinic where the Suns' Richard Dumas, like many other NBA players before him, is getting help. Lucas has dedicated his life to his clinic and its patients, for which all of the NBA is grateful. But Lucas also coaches the San Antonio Spurs. Some see a conflict of interest there, especially since the Suns were close to trading Dumas to the Pistons for Dennis Rodman, whom the Spurs recently obtained.
First of all, I don't suspect John Lucas of any wrongdoing. I have a lot of respect for him, and I think if anybody can handle this conflict, then he can do it. But I mean, it's obviously a conflict, and I think that somebody will do something about it, because it's not something that is ideal, let's put it that way.
If Paul Westphal had a son that was in trouble, you wouldn't want me to help his son if he knocked on my door. I think that they aren't thinking clearly. I think they're thinking about winning more so than about helping Richard Dumas. I thought the goal here was to help Richard Dumas.
Lucas, who became the Spurs head coach early last season, also points out there was a time when the Suns sought his involvement, where now they seem to question it.
A year ago, when Richard was doing so well, they really wanted me involved. Now when there's a problem, now all of a sudden there's a problem with me being involved. It doesn't make sense.
At the urging of the Phoenix Suns, the NBA is looking into this unusual case, acknowledging that the potential for conflict does exist. But here's the dilemma. Does that worry outweigh what everyone says is their chief motivation, ensuring that an athlete like Dumas gets help, no matter who gives it? The NBA minimizes potential improprieties, telling ESPN that Lucas has established himself as a leader in this area. And in light of this, the NBA hesitates to force Lucas to remove himself from the program.
If in fact the trade doesn't go through, then there's an interest in seeing why the trade didn't happen. It's easy to blame the system. It's easy to point to someone who's in a conflict of interest, quote, position, where in fact that conflict just doesn't exist.
Because of the issue, Lucas says he's less inclined to involve himself heavily in Dumas's treatment, though he regrets not having done more to possibly prevent Dumas from relapsing at all.
This year, I probably should have gone and got Richard, but I didn't, simply because what you're saying, when I should have said, my best bet is, why don't I just go snatch him and get him, because I ain't heard from him in 2 months, which is a telltale sign to me that something's going on. When you don't want to talk to me, that means you're doing something that ain't based on recovery.
Lucas lacks the authority to decide when players can come back to the NBA. As for Rodman, Lucas is thrilled to have him on his team, but that, he says, is trivial compared to his commitment to the sobriety of himself and others. Pam Oliver, ESPN.
You love them, you hate them, you can't live without them. Coming up, America's love affair with quarterbacks. They drive a team, and they're driven by their egos.
Oh, I think you have to have the ultimate ego. You know, I've been accused of being cocky and egotistical. And I say to you people, pshaw. I'm neither cocky nor egotistical. I just happen to be the best at what I do.
Chances are when you were a youngster playing football with your friends in the neighborhood, you wanted to be the quarterback. Whether it's high school, college, or pro ball, there's just something about the one on the field calling all the shots. And often quarterbacks take shots, not only from opposing players, but from critics off the field as well. Number 1 on the list, a huge ego. Make that number 1 through 10. Marianne Grabavoy takes a closer look.
The bottom line is I want to play football because of the fact that I was a quarterback.
Red 28!
You know, I like to be in charge, and I like to be the guy in the huddle that's making a call.
Set! Green 80!
It is not so much a physical position.
You run out of the break. I'm running out the break. Tippy toe like a...
It's a mental game of, you know, similar to playing a game of chess.
We get another score, though. We need another score. Can't let him get the big return.
I think a quarterback is kind of like, you know, the tea bags of life. They got to perform when the water's hot.
20-13 Browns. Mark Jackson in motion. The snap to Elway. The look, the throw, touchdown.
Oh, I think you have to have the ultimate ego. You know, I've been accused of being cocky and egotistical. And I say to you people, pshaw. I'm neither cocky nor egotistical. I just happen to be the best at what I do.
America has had a long-standing love affair with the quarterback. Standing in the huddle, he's the focal point. There's an aura about him. But strip away the padding, and you find the essential core. The quarterback drives the team, but what drives the quarterback is his ego.
If you don't have confidence, you can't play quarterback. And if you have the confidence, I guess then people call that having an ego.
Ego is armor. People with the biggest egos, to a large degree, are probably the most insecure people you'll find. I know I am. You know, you drop this shield of armor and, no. But true, it is. It's an armor. It's a shield. And the bigger the ego, the more you're building up to protect yourself from whatever.
Ego is healthy if it's under control.
And with so much adulation, that can be a problem. The way America has come to view the quarterback is something beyond rational. If he wins, he's the embodiment of everything good, powerful, and sexy. He's a superhuman who sports shoulder pads on Sundays.
Now, I don't wear pantyhose, but if beauty mist can make my legs look good, imagine what they'll do for yours.
More than any other athlete, Broadway Joe Namath forever changed our perception of the quarterback with his awesome talent, supreme confidence, and brash personality. Surely God had created this quarterback anything but equal. After all, quarterbacks are born, not made, right?
I believe quarterbacks are made and not born.
I really believe they're born. It's got to be there. That little special spark that you look in their eye and there's not a little pilot light going on. There's a bonfire going on in there.
I believe that the good Lord destined people to become quarterbacks.
Well, if their destiny is assured at birth, then much less certain is their fate when it comes to the 2-minute drill. For the quarterback, it is the definitive ego builder or ego smasher, and the supreme test of a quarterback's ability to make others believe.
The only feature that the players will follow is the quarterback's performance, not what he says. So he could say about anything, as long as he performed well.
Whether it be in the way you look at them or your voice or whatever, but they've got to believe that you're going to take them down the field.
If you're lucky enough to have a 4th down and 20 and convert it, all of a sudden these guys look at you and go, whoa, this guy's something.
It's just that feeling of being special that feeds their ego. As a coach, dealing with the quarterback ego can be a delicate proposition. Build confidence, but find a balance between healthy self-esteem and runaway egocentrism. For a coach, does it come down to pampering the quarterback?
Yeah, I think a quarterback's pampered. I think he should be. Because all the other players look at the quarterback for success, you really don't chastise the quarterback in front of the other players.
It's different to coach a quarterback because the teammates have to be able to look to that quarterback. So rarely do you see a lot of coaches coming down hard on quarterbacks because they want to make sure that the teammates believe in them.
So they are born, not made, pampered, not chastised, driven by their ego, and fed by everyone who ever dreamt of feeling the pigskin spiral off his fingertips. America lives through the quarterback. He who throws the ball has won 5 of the Heisman trophies awarded in the last 10 years. In 27 Super Bowls, the quarterback has been named MVP 15 times. And while the average NFL salary in 1992 was just under $500,000 a year, the starting quarterback earned 3 times that, roughly $1.6 million a year. But with all the rewards and the hysteria that surround the quarterback position, he alone must perform in a very public theater. Feel the white-hot heat.
There's times when you get on the bad rolls that you're not playing well and people are coming down on you, that where the ego really has to come through for you and bring you back up and just keep you hanging in there and playing hard.
While defenses can wreak havoc with their bodies, both winning and losing can wreak havoc with their minds and egos.
You couldn't find a hat size big enough for my head. I couldn't walk into a room. There wasn't a room big enough to handle my head. I lost Joe Theismann. In all this world of professional sports, in all the touchdown passes, in all the headlines, in all the television shows and the commercials and the movies and the rings and the honors, I lost him. He was gone.
But there's a paradox here. You desperately need the ego, but it can become dangerous, right?
You're really walking a very thin line here. You're walking a thin line between taking it to the max, right to the end. And do you get off before it goes over the edge, or do you ride this bullet down over the cliff?
On one side, ego as asset. On the other, ego as destroyer. By definition, the quarterback may be a man of personality. He has to wield power over others, but there is the danger of becoming vainglorious, and that, in the end, could do him in. Mike Singletary and former Bears quarterback Jim McMahon.
He had a great situation. I mean, he could have been mayor of Chicago easily. He could have done anything that he wanted to. It was wonderful. Jim McMahon walked outside with no pants on. It was great. At one time, that's the kind of power that he had, but he abused it. As an end result, what really happened was it began to affect the team.
While an ego run amok can be a liability during the quarterback's playing days, it can be even more devastating when his career is suddenly over. For Joe Theismann, the date was November 18th, 1985. Lawrence Taylor shattered his leg and his ego.
At 9 o'clock at night, I'm a starting quarterback. 10:15, I'm a hospital patient.
A nobody?
A nobody. And this ego of mine through the world of football that perpetuated my life and my lifestyle all of a sudden was gone. Yeah, how could I support an ego when I didn't have a playing field to support it on?
For many quarterbacks, so much of their ego, their entire identity, is tied to the position. It is who they are.
I plan on living another 50 years anyway, and I'll probably still be known as a quarterback, and that's not bad at all.
As with most things in life, perspective and balance come with age. The quarterback may have the ultimate ego. It may be his armor, but it can also be his Achilles heel.
I took the journey. I paid for the ride. I rode the roller coaster, and I learned a lot of lessons along the way, but the one thing that came painfully clear to me is that no matter what we do in life, whether it's athletics or anything else, is you can't do it alone. You cannot survive in your own ego.
And the quarterback position will be the major theme on NFL Game Day this week. Profiles of Randall Cunningham and Boomer Esiason, as well as a look at the quarterback controversy in Detroit. But it's back to the major leagues when we come back. Peter Gammons will join us to discuss, among other things, the down-to-the-wire NL West race. Peter also has some thoughts on the upcoming ALCS matchup between the Jays and the White Sox. We'll be back in a moment.
The great race in the NL West comes down to one final day. The Giants take on the arch-rival Dodgers today at 4 Eastern, live on ESPN Major League Baseball.
Sports Weekly is brought to you by Budweiser, the king of beers, who reminds you friends know when to say when.
We're not certain about the NLCS, but we are sure about the American League Championship Series. Here's the pitching rotation. The Sox will begin with their big gun, 22-game winner Jack McDowell. It's going to be Stewart and Fernandez in Game 2. Hinkin and Alvarez will go in Toronto, and Stottlemyre and Berry in Game 4, also in Toronto. Peter Gammons is back with us this morning. I always thank you, but thank you especially for coming in early. We got a lot to talk about. With all due respect to the ALCS, we'll get to that in a moment. We've got a matter to decide out west in the NL. Tom Glavine, of course, starting for the Braves this afternoon at Fulton County Stadium, working on 3 days rest. We showed an ad earlier that he does not do well on that kind of rest. Is he really kind of tired about now?
Well, Robin, the whole pitching staff is. I mean, really, when you look at what they did in that 2-month run to get back into first place, they exhausted themselves, and basically they've been running on fumes for the last 10 days or 2 weeks. I mean, when you look, John Smoltz, I mean, you could see him hooking his hand back, pitching almost exhausted. Steve Avery struggled about 3 out of 5 or 6 starts to get the ball down. He was obviously tired. And Glavine threw 141 pitches in his last start. He's coming back today. But one thing, I mean, with all due respect for the Colorado Rockies, and they're a pretty good team. I think they're a better team than the Dodgers, except for the pitching. But Glavine is a man of immense heart. I would never bet against that man in a big game.
A young guy who hasn't been in this position very much, a rookie for the Giants, Salomon Torres, who pitches today. You know, a lot has been said about him, but do you think it may boil down to the bullpen where you have someone like Rod Beck to save it for you?
Well, Robin, I mean, and Torres is a real special guy. I mean, he's got this personality. Nothing bothers him. He's almost like a young Marichal, but I mean, the bullpen of the Giants has been unbelievable down the stretch. I mean, it's been the difference between the Giants and the Braves in a lot of ways in this last week and a half. And if anyone doesn't believe that Rod Beck belongs in the top 10 for the MVP, he's out of his mind. I mean, this guy, he pitches every day. If Danny Tartable played as much in September as this guy plays, he'd be the MVP. I mean, he has pitched almost every game. He's struggling. He's hanging sliders. He looks like he's hanging fastballs, but he's still getting them out and pitching on heart. And it's amazing how much adrenaline can carry a guy. I mean, I don't know what it's going to be like if they ever get to have to play the Phillies, but who cares?
I know, who cares at this point? Exciting nonetheless. Let's not slight the ALCS. Frank Thomas got hurt about a week or so ago. How effective do you think he'll be in this championship series?
Well, that's something, I mean, Herm Schneider, the trainer, has done a great job working on him, but no one seems to know just how effective he's going to be. I mean, he is a huge key in this series. But ever since he got hurt, they've been really worried about him starting to take BP. I mean, here he crashed in there, hurt his forearm, and took some days off. I mean, he actually had to take himself out of the clincher. Just how effective he's going to be is an immense part of this series. I mean, there are a lot of keys to the White Sox. Tim Raines is going to get on base. George Bell and Robin Ventura have to hit behind him, particularly George, who's really struggled in the past against his old team. He tries to. He's 3 for 31 this year. But they have to hit so that Frank will at least get some pitches to hit during the playoffs. But Frank is a huge key because the White Sox really struggle scoring runs at times.
Let me quickly ask you this. With realignment coming in, are we going to see another dramatic series like we are between the Braves and the Giants as far as the NL West goes?
No, I mean, we've never seen a race with 200-win teams going down this far to the last day with a possibility of a playoff. This is the first and last great television for a great race. And, you know, I mean, maybe it's the best way to move on to the next plateau. I don't happen to like it, but
hey,
I love this.
What can we do? Thanks a lot, Peter. We'll see you on baseball tonight. Keep in mind, I'll be back in 30 minutes with the Sunday morning edition of Sports Center. Chris Berman will be by my side with news and notes from the NFL. That and a great deal more after the Sports Reporters, which is coming up next as Sunday Sports Day rolls on.